Hello friends, today we will discuss one more new topic in statistics, particularly in descriptive statistics, that is measures of central tendency. One of the important objectives of statistical analysis is to determine various numerical measures which describe the inherent characteristic of a frequency distribution. When we plot a frequency distribution, we observe that for the first few classes and the last few classes, the frequency is less. But in the middle of the classes, the frequency is maximum. So this is the tendency that the observations are lying in the frequency distribution. What is actually meant by a central tendency? A central tendency or a measure of central tendency is a central or typical value for a probability distribution. So that is a value which lies in the middle part of the distribution, in the middle part of a probability distribution or frequency distribution. So this is the tendency of the values to lie in a central value in the probability distribution. The tendency of quantitative data to cluster around some central value. So that is nothing but a central tendency. So these central tendencies are often called as averages. The first of such measures is nothing but the understanding of these averages. The averages are the measures which condense a huge unwieldy set of numerical data into single numerical values which are representative of the entire distributions. So the RA Fisher defined this as the inherent inability of the human mind to grasp in its entirely a large body of numerical data compels us to seek relatively few constants that will adequately describe the data. The averages are one of such few constants. Averages provide us the gist and give a bird's eye view of the huge mass of unwieldy numerical data. The important objectives of the averages are to reduce the volume of data. So if you see the data consists of a large number of figures, and we need to reduce this volume of data in a single figure, and the single figure which should be a representative for the total of the data. So the main objective of understanding averages is to reduce the volume of data into a single figure. Suppose there are 100 students in a class. It is not possible for a teacher to remember all the marks obtained by these 100 students. So therefore, what he does, he calculates the averages, and he says that the average marks obtained by this class is 65%. So this is the way we can reduce the volume of data in a single figure. 65 is a single figure. That is nothing but the average. And one more thing that you should keep in mind, that this 65 does not mean that all the students in the class are getting the same number of marks. Some students are getting more than 65 marks and some students are below 65. But when we talk about a single figure, we are calculating the average, and the average mark of this class is supposed to be 65%. That is one objective of understanding these averages. The another one is to facilitate comparison. Suppose there is a one batsman who on an average scores runs as 65, and there is one more batsman who on an average scores runs as 45. So to facilitate comparison, suppose there is one more test match and the coach is required one more batsman. So either he goes to batsman A or batsman B who scores runs 65 or 45. In this way, by taking these averages, the coach may conclude that the batsman who scored more runs may be considered as for the next test match. So to facilitate comparison, one may go for understanding averages. So that is one more objective of an average. So what are the requirements of this average? So the average should be simple to understand. So whatever be the average, it should be simple to understand. So that means the definition should be such that one may easily understand the definition. The another one is the average should be easy to calculate. Means what? The formula involved in the calculation does not tedious. It is very simple to calculate. We calculate the averages and it is easy to calculate, then we can say that the average is a good average. So these are the requirements for a ideal average, or we can say that a good average. The third requisite is it should be clearly defined by mathematical formula. So the average should be such that we can clearly define by using the mathematical or arithmetical formula. The next one is it should be based on all observations. So the average is such that it should be based on all observations. Suppose there are 10 observations, then we can get such average which should be based on all these 10 observations. If the average is based on all these 10 observations, then we can say that it is a ideal average. The next is it should be capable of further mathematical treatment. Means what? Suppose if we calculate the average and we are not using this for next step, then we cannot say that this average is a good average. So whatever average we are using or we are applying, that should be capable of further mathematical treatment. Further mathematical treatment in the sense, so this value should be used for further analytical purpose or further analysis. So the next one is it should be stable in sample. Stable in sample means suppose there are 100 observations and we are dividing in 3 samples, in 3 groups. The average calculated by these samples should be same. Suppose the average of first sample is 19, of second is 19 and the third is 19. In that case, we can say that it should be a stable in the sample. The next one is it is least affected by extreme observations. So extreme observations are nothing but the large observations or the small observations in the group of data. Suppose there are 10 observations and one observation is such that which is far away from these remaining 9 observations. So that these extreme observations are also called as outliers. If there exists an outlier in the observations, so that is affected on the average, and the average should be supposed to be ideal if it is least affected by these outliers. These are big observations or the small observations. The next one is it should not affected by open-end classes. So open-end classes are nothing but the classes when the lower limit or the upper limit is not defined, and the average should be such that it should not be affected by open-end classes. Suppose the lower limit is not given or the upper limit is not given, so in that case also the average should be such that we can calculate that particular frequency distribution or probability distribution. Open-end classes are nothing but the classes which are open. So when we can say that below 10 means, so the upper limit is 10 but the lower limit in that case is not defined. And suppose we can say that more than 60 means what? 70, 80, 90, 600, 1000, 10,000. So the upper limit in that case is not determined. So this class is called as a open-end class, and average should be such that it should not be affected by open-end classes. And the last one is the average should be plotted graphically. So friends, we have seen in our some previous videos, when we plot the histogram, by using that histogram we can calculate the value of mode, or graphically we can determine the value of mode. And also by using less than Ogive curve and greater than Ogive curve, we can locate the value of median. So the average should be such that we can a graph, and by plotting that graph we can get the value of the corresponding averages. So averages should be such that it is it should be obtained graphically as well as mathematically. We can get the value of averages. So these are the types of averages. So average is either mathematical average or the others. Mathematical averages are arithmetic mean, geometric mean, and harmonic mean. And there are others which are also called as positional averages, in which the position of the average is fixed in the given data. So one is median and the other one is mode. So these are the types of averages, and we can see these averages in our next session. So till then you may try to understand the concept of averages and its requirements. Till then, goodbye.